Welcome back. Dr. Ira, we Americans survived by luck. There were so many nuclear accidents here on our soil by mistake, like one in Damascus, Arkansas, where Titan II missile by a freak accident got destroyed, and the nuclear warhead on top of it was 9 megaton. And then we have accidents like North Carolina, B-52 bomber flying, dropping the bomb. Neil Bohr, the nuclear physicist who were part of Manhattan Project, left and said, any country who will make a nuclear bomb has to go upside down, and America has just done the same. So tell me, the probability of having one nuclear bomb detonation by all the studies has gone up. What is the destructive power of today's nuclear bomb if by mistake it gets dropped to a populated area?
You know, the arsenals of the world have nuclear weapons of varying strengths in them. In the U.S. arsenal, we have some smaller weapons, but most of the bombs that are warheads that are on our missiles have a range up to 450, 500 kilotons. That's about 30 to 40 times the strength of the Hiroshima bomb. In the Russian arsenal, their land-based missiles go up to 800 kilotons. I believe the Chinese still have one warhead that is in service that is 5 megatons, 5 million tons of TNT. The weapons are enormously more powerful than the Hiroshima bomb, and there are lots of them. You know, people sometimes think that with the end of the Cold War these weapons went away, but there are in the world today 17,000 nuclear warheads. About 95% are in the US and Russian arsenals, about roughly 7,500 to 8,000 in each of those two arsenals. But the Indian and Pakistani arsenals are not insignificant, 100 warheads each. The Chinese probably have 300 warheads, the French about the same. The Israelis may have anywhere from 80 to 150 warheads. Large numbers of very destructive weapons all over the planet. And we have to understand that even if they're never used deliberately, there is a terrible, terrible risk of the accidental detonation of one of these weapons. It's not that people are careless with them. People try very hard in all of these militaries to safeguard these weapons and have put into place very elaborate systems to try to make sure that accidents don't take place. But we're not perfect. And as long as we're not perfect, the possibility of accident exists, and as you were referring to just a few minutes ago, there have been numerous episodes in which we have come very close to the accidental detonation of a nuclear weapon. And given their enormous destructiveness, this is just a risk that we simply cannot take.
United States, we have liberty, freedom, and right to get the Information Act. After 25 years, we can demand from CIA, from Pentagon. Are there any such accounts available with China, Russia, India, Pakistan, of accidents?
We know of a couple of incidents, 3 of them, in which the Soviet and then later Russian government planned to launch nuclear war because of computer errors or because of misinterpretations of current events. So those are in the public domain. I think there's not as much information. We also know of a number, however, we know also of a number of accidents involving Russian submarines. So there's some information about what has happened in other countries. I'm not sure we know the whole picture here in the United States. We know what we know. There may well have been other episodes that have not yet been released to the public. And that's a real cause of concern, because seeing how many near misses there have been already, you wonder if you're getting the whole picture, or if there have been other even more dangerous episodes that the public does not yet know about.
One incident which Eric Schlosser, I heard him talking over the telephone, the famous writer who brought all this Damascus incidents and minute-to-minute detail of illusion of safety, that 2 years ago a Russian submarine in Pacific caught fire. with 120 nuclear warheads on board. And Pacific Ocean from Fukushima is like seeping 300 tons of radioactive water. If such incidents happen in Pacific, the studies are showing that all bluefish tuna there have more level of millichloride, which is measurement of radiation, than ever. What are we doing with these oceans and our environment?
Well, it's a wonderful point that you raised, because even if we don't have a nuclear war, if the weapons aren't used as explosives, their simple production has caused enormous environmental damage. Huge areas that have been contaminated with radioactive material, from the mining of the uranium, to the processing of the uranium, to the fabrication of the bombs. Certainly the testing of these weapons, when that was still taking place, released tremendous amounts of radioactive material in parts of the United States, in Algeria, in Kazakhstan, in wide areas of the South Pacific where atmospheric tests took place. We've created an enormous inventory of radioactive material that we're storing temporarily because we don't know how to store it permanently. All of the leftover material, when the weapons-grade material is extracted from the uranium, we don't know how to deal with this. We don't have permanent storage facilities in the United States or any place else in the world. No one has figured out how to store this material, and it remains dangerous for hundreds of years. In the case of plutonium, the plutonium component of this radioactive waste remains dangerous for nearly 500,000 years. There is an incredible act of hubris, of arrogance and pride in creating a problem of this magnitude that will last farther into the future than all of our history extends into the past. Even if you're talking just a few hundred years ago, the United States didn't exist. Europe, in that period of time, has had war after war after war, which wars would have disrupted and dispersed this material had it been stored from 500 years ago. What kind of a legacy are we leaving to our children? They're going to live in a planet with these little time bombs of radioactive material stored all over the place. And 500 years from now, who knows if we'll even have kept track of where we put the stuff.
You brought a very, very, very important, excellent academic and mathematical point, that United States government have spent billions of dollars to decontaminate the areas from Berkeley University to all over the United States to clean the areas where they stored, tested nuclear bombs, and still there is no end to sight, number one. Number two, Coke can size plutonium weigh around 6.6 pounds and enough to make a 1,000 kilo TNT nuclear bomb. Now, the countries which are making, like, let's say, which I don't believe, clean nuclear energy, they are going to produce a lot of plutonium. Like, let me give you an example. In Japan, they are building in Rokusho, Japan, a new power plant with $20 billion after this incident in Fukushima. And that plant will be capable of producing 6,000 pounds of plutonium every year, which theoretically Japan can make 1,000 bombs if Japan wants. Same concerns we have with South Korea or other nations we are getting into clean nuclear energy. Question comes to a very important questions of smuggling of these radioactive material, which is the concern. United States spent $870 million for border security, and some experiments showed that it is a failure. The reason, the neutron detector goes over the container. Now imagine the room-sized container and Coke-sized radioactive material buried down. What happens is that they have done the experiments with low-level radioactive material like depleted uranium, not with plutonium. That neutron reactor failed to detect. And if anybody, terrorist or anybody, can want to smuggle plutonium which is enough like Coke size can. They can wrap it little sophisticatedly with plastic. The hydrogen atom will absorb the neutron and neutron detector can fail. So it is not a theory, it is a real fear. Now let me ask you this. How difficult it is for some little sophisticated scientist to make a nuclear bomb from plutonium of 6.6?
Well, the construction of a nuclear bomb is not that difficult technically if you have the enriched uranium and the plutonium. You can, in open sources on the internet, you can read articles and see diagrams about how you would assemble this material to make a nuclear weapon. The difficult stage, the thing which keeps us from seeing a much more rapid proliferation of nuclear weapons, is the production of the plutonium and the highly enriched uranium. These are complicated industrial processes that are hard to disguise. They involve a lot of energy. They involve sophisticated industrial facilities. The problem here is that we're solving that problem for people who would build a nuclear weapon by producing such vast quantities of it. There are tons and tons and tons of highly enriched uranium and plutonium on the planet, some of which is guarded quite well and some of which is not guarded as well. And this material is potentially available to terrorists to obtain and to use to build a nuclear weapon. There is an almost unavoidable association between the nuclear power industry and nuclear weapons production. Any time that you have a nuclear power industry, you have created a situation in which you are producing fissile materials that can be diverted and that can be used for nuclear weapons production, either by the country which is running that nuclear power industry or perhaps by non-state actors who might get access to it.
Are you currently satisfied with NPT in general? With time are getting situation worsened in Ukraine?
Well, the situation in Ukraine is very dangerous for many reasons.
Nuclear weapon is anti-logic, anti-faith.
We can stop the destruction of the climate.